Well, I'm pretty excited to be starting this part of my YouTube channel because today is about the first painting in my series of 6, and it's called Hidden. I'll just give a little background. A lot of my paintings, I used Dunnottar Castle as a backdrop for a lot of them. The picture Hidden, you can see the ocean and Dunnottar Rock, which the castle was built on. So this was a really key power center for the kings and the lords of Scotland. St. Ninians brought a group of pilgrims and set up a missionary station on Dunnottar Rock, and at that time it would have been mud and basically a thatched roof for shelter. And then over the years, it was just the Vikings destroyed it, the Scots destroyed it against the English. It was just a real power center. Many times that there was a new army invaded the castle, they would burn it. This is just a book on Dunnottar Castle. Some pretty cool pictures. You can see the bigger picture of the rock that it stands, the location. And one of the struggles, basically the struggles between the English and the Scots was not just a political thing, but a religious thing. So often it was against the Catholics, against the Protestants, and sometimes it was Presbyterianism against one of the other religions that was in Scotland. So they were fighting themselves at one point. And then one of the highlights of Dunnottar, and I'm gonna look for just the place where there was 144. They were called Covenanters, and they were kept in this basically a dungeon. Now, I did a painting with what it looks out to. It looks out to the ocean, and during that time they weren't fed, or they didn't get any water. There was no sanitation. Again, the only thing that was the problem there was that a lot of the dominating kings, or queens for that matter, were enforcing their style of structure on the church. And the resistance was the people that didn't want to do that. So the Covenanters were one of those groups, and they just objected to be doing it the way they were wanted to do it in their churches. It's always good to go back to where does things start? What's the root of what happened here? What was the beginning? And it was just a place of absolute turmoil. It's visually amazing, and it's actually the perfect setting for like my first painting. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is about my hiding, and I think I would share right away, like, I didn't know growing up and as I got into being an adult that I was hiding anything. Like, life was just normal. You went along, you don't know any different because you don't see you're not exposed to anything different than what you've got. So your original family and your environment is your world. And especially with us being raised in the Brethren, because we weren't allowed concerts or going to the picture house or watching. We didn't have TV or radio. I don't even think they were allowed to read newspapers. So you were isolated from an outside world, basically. Even chapel in our school, we weren't, me and this other Catholic kid, Colin, we weren't allowed to go to chapel. And I think it would have been really good for us to go to chapel, because some of the stuff that went on in the Brethren, I didn't understand it. It was over my head, a lot of it. So, and they'd no Sunday school. So, and it wasn't until later, in my later years, that I learned that I had built a survival kit around just some of the events that went on in my life. So every child, when they're growing up in the environment that they're in, they've got a few basic needs. Now, I'll probably get this wrong. I'm going to just kind of make up what I feel is some of the basic needs. They need to feel belonging. They need to feel loved. They need to feel safe. And they need to feel accepted. And apart from the food and a roof over their heads, like there's certain things that children need to be safe. And didn't feel anything unsafe when I was growing up, but there were certain events that I started learning to be safe and create my own space. And what I did to do that was I built walls around certain parts of my heart, certain belief systems I had. I contained myself in a certain way. I lived in a relatively safe home. Like my dad was a good dad. My mom was a good mom. So, but it's not about them. This is about me and how I built walls around my heart to protect myself. And I'll try and share some of the things that I did. My dad, as much as he was a good man, he had a temper. Like, it wasn't a constant temper. It wasn't angry all the time. But I remember I must have been about 4 or 5, and my mum and dad had visitors in, and I wanted to be down there. Me and my brother were upstairs, and I started making a bit of a fuss because I wanted down to where they are. We were on a funny landing, like it was a stairs but without a banister in the middle. So it went down a landing and then down again. And my dad was so mad by the time he came up the stairs that I felt like he threw me, but I could have fallen. But I ended up on the bottom of the stairs and thinking, oh my gosh, he could have killed me right now. So I became scared of my dad, actually. And that was to continue. I have a few stories that I can tell as I got older. I just want to talk a little bit about anger. So anger is a great way to protect yourself from an outside world. It basically protects all the insecurities that I'm going to talk about in myself. I became a really angry guy as a teenager. As a dad, I was a really angry dad, and I've had to actually confess to my children just how I mistreated them and how I misrepresented Jesus to them. But there's 2 types of anger. My anger was like pretty steady there. Anybody did something wrong, I was on it, especially my kids and my dog. But my dad, he was a lot more controlled than I was. And the other type of anger is an anger with a long fuse. So my anger had a fairly short fuse. So my kids knew when I was angry at them right away. It's wrong. It was just me carrying forward hurt from my childhood and passing it on basically to my kids. But my dad had a lot longer a fuse. So what happened would be like there would be this build-up of events, and you'd never know until boom, everything fell apart. And now you saw the full wrath of the full manifestation of the anger, and it's like a bomb had gone off. And the trouble with that kind of anger is it comes as such a surprise that it's a shock, it's traumatizing. It catches you off guard. I hate to talk about this because I feel I'm dishonoring my dad, but I'm actually just telling my story, being transparent. So when I was 13, we were in a church hall, and it was like a stadium with a small inner circle, and it was just like, so everybody kind of like could see everybody. It was in like a circular shape. And I didn't know what I'd done, but for some reason, I was sitting there one day and my dad clamped his hand onto my knee and he squeezed it. And it's like, okay, now we'll let go. But he didn't let go. And it was like, anyway, it was so sore that I could feel the tears coming into my face. And now I've got these red hot tears running down my face. And I'm aware that people can see me. So just the shame that brought. So I've got now 3 things to deal with. My dad's anger, my shame, and the religious place where this happened. So these all came together as I was growing up. With my history, it's not surprising that I have issues with church and how it's done, and with leadership, and how you should be treating people, how you shouldn't be treating people. So there's a lot in there that I've had to unravel. As I started serving the church when we first came to Canada, I think when I was younger, I made a vow that I would never let the church control me. And that would be like leaders control me. And how that played out was, I could see when we came to Canada, there was a lot of power given to people that were being paid for a service. So pastors, there was a lot of power in position. Being a pastor gave you like authority, but you were also paid, and there was a money content. And I think I vowed that I would never accept any money from the church, because if I did that, they could use that money to control me. And it's funny because when we were volunteering in this church in Canada, there was this one guy, and he says, "Hey, I'm trying to get a gift through the church to give it to you." Now, you can get a tax receipt that goes against your taxes if you do that. Anyway, none of that money ever came to me. I never got one penny when I volunteered in the church in Canada, which actually fulfilled the vow that I will not be paid by a church, because it would control me. But so I actually shut off a blessing by having that vow. So that vow that I would have had from little affected me when I was in my 30s, and we sure could have used the money at that time. The benefits of hiding basically is a survival thing where you can start being quiet, you can start not sharing emotion, you can start not sharing what you want, you can start not being vocal about what you need. You learn to basically shut yourself off from the unsafe things around you. I'm not sure that sadness was something that was allowed to be acknowledged in my home. Anger was okay to be vocalized, so I think anger became something that I learned quickly, that I could be angry. We adjust to fit in, we change behaviors, we do stuff to be accepted. For me, eventually when I got older, I worked. I did things to help to try and be accepted. Sometimes we just shrink back so that we're unnoticed, we're invisible, so that world and all kinds of dynamics can be going out here, but you withdraw and you're not part of that trauma and kind of stuff that's going on around you. So like I say, with the first part of hidden, it's a survival, like hiding is a survival skill. The downside of hiding, so the upside of hiding is it's a protection. The downside of hiding is if we bring that into our adult lives, this is probably the most important statement I'm going to make on this video, is what we hide, we cannot heal. So to heal something, you've got to be able to bring it out, to keep those walls up and to keep pain and the struggle that we have hidden. Is actually something that will hinder us actually moving forward into maybe new things, or maybe moving into new emotions. Like sometimes it's hard for people that are shut down to feel any joy or happiness, or if they do experience some joy, it's like, oh no, something's going to happen so that I'm going to be hurt, and then I've got to retreat. So you're on an alert all the time. Your body stores that, so your body knows and is living in constant alertness all the time, which is very hard on your body and might come out in sicknesses. You get stuck. If you don't work through this, you get stuck in the emotional age of the trauma that you had. So you're grown up, but you're basically you're in an adult body, but you're still in a child, and there's certain parts of your world that just hasn't developed because you got stunted because of a situation, and you probably made some kind of vow that I will never do this because that's not safe, and so you create this framework of safety around you, which as you get older does not become a safety anymore, but a hindrance into all the good things that you could be enjoying. So you can do all kinds of stuff to kind of get your needs met. You could become the jokester, so you become the funny person, and that's how you deal with the environment that you're in. You can actually play the victim, so you can be going through life playing that I'm just going to be hurt, everybody's going to hurt me, everything's going to go wrong. And actually, can be a very powerful position to have, because imagine in a group and I've got all these things happening to me. Oh, you're such a poor thing. Let's spend time with you and love you. And what do you need? So it becomes like a passive thing that you just use an environment in your position, in your protective walls, to get attention and to get people to. You become the focus of the group often. And then if it's anger, well, how many angry people have you gone and talked to and said, you know what, you've got a problem with anger? You just don't, because then they get angry. Like nobody wants to be at the butt end of an angry person. So that anger helps to protect myself, to be in the walls that I've built. It keeps everybody at bay, so nobody can get into that space. The other downside of hiding, because we're so trained in how our protective response is, we often don't have a sense of joy or contentment or peace in our lives. And often when good things come to us, we actually sabotage them, and we don't allow ourselves to be successful because for some reason we don't believe that we can be or we deserve it. So after I finished my my series of paintings, I had 6, and I had the opportunity one service in a church to actually share my art. So basically what I did is I cleared all the chairs, and so now everybody was standing, and I spread my paintings in order that I have around the church building, and I asked the congregation to just to wander around and take a look at my art, and then the painting that they identify the most with, just stop there. So I had 6 paintings at the time, and within about maybe 10 minutes of just mulling, everybody had found a spot. And then there was maybe about 30 people there, and everybody actually found a painting that they could identify with. I thought, you know what, I've got this mic. I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask people what it is about the painting that they identify with. So I made a mistake. I started with the hidden picture. I said, okay, who would like to share why they picked this painting? Well, it was the hidden picture. Nobody wanted to share. So it actually was very accurate, and basically the people that went to that painting wanted to be hidden. They didn't want to be seen. So that was just really helpful for me to see just the effectiveness of the art. And often when people speak and there's not I think we've missed actually a lot of the visual identification with things. Like, I think having a picture to identify a feeling rather than just a word is a very helpful thing. So you can give me feedback if you think that's true. Thank you. That's the first part of the hidden picture, and part 2 will be coming pretty soon. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again. Thank you.